The Xylos Empire had long considered humans as merely another insignificant species in the vast galactic community. Logical, disciplined, and technologically advanced, the Xylos viewed humans as primitive emotional beings, physically weak and technologically underdeveloped compared to the dominant species. The general perception throughout the galaxy was that humans posed no threat. They were even somewhat pitiful or annoying due to their illogical nature. Commander Zalter was a highly respected war hero of the Xylos species. His reputation had been built upon his unwavering logic, courage, and strict adherence to Xylos' military doctrine during the Great Expansion conflict. This massive interstellar war had primarily been fought against the brutal Cthar Dominion, with humans playing only a minor supporting role. Throughout his illustrious career, Zalter had demonstrated tactical brilliance and an unshakable commitment to the Xylos way of life. Now in the twilight of his career, Zalter lived a relatively peaceful existence, serving as a senior instructor at the Imperial Military Academy on the Xylos homeworld. His days were spent teaching young cadets the principles of strategic warfare and writing his memoirs. Yet beneath this tranquil surface, Zalter was haunted by a specific incident from the war, a battle involving humans where the outcome did not align with logic or official reports. This discrepancy weighed on him, a silent burden of confusion that he had carried for years. The War Memorial Institute of Xylos had recently invited Commander Zalter to present the official and final account of a pivotal but mysterious engagement from the conflict, the Battle of the Cygnus X, One Darkness. This battle had unusual outcomes and had generated numerous rumors and speculations throughout the years. The Xylos leadership expected an epic tale affirming Xylos' superiority and tactical genius. Importantly, humans had been present at this battle in what was initially believed to be an insignificant capacity. As Zalter prepared his narrative, he accessed the official Xylos archives, three-dimensional tactical maps, and combat logs from the Battle of Cygnus X, One Darkness. The official records indicated a Xylos victory achieved through superior strategy against the primary enemy, the savage Cthar. Human involvement was noted as minimal, a small auxiliary fleet protecting a nearby settlement. Yet as he reviewed the data, Zalter identified a significant anomaly. During a critical phase of the battle, the Cthar fleet, despite holding a clear tactical advantage over the Xylos, suddenly faltered, broke formation, and retreated in disarray, allowing the Xylos to claim victory. The official explanation attributed this to a command error by the Cthar or an unexpected brilliant Xylos tactical maneuver. This explanation had never sat right with Zalter. He accessed his personal sensory logs and memories through Xylos' memory enhancement technology. He recalled extreme panic in the Cthar communication channels, erratic movements that weren't directed at evading Xylos' ships but seemed focused on escaping something else entirely. He remembered reports of strange energy signatures or anomalies near the human position just before the Cthar collapse. Intrigued, Zalter delved deeper into the fragmented data related to the small human contingent. Their communications had mostly been interfered with or encrypted, their actions deemed irrelevant by Xylos' command at the time. But he found reports of desperate signals from the humans, followed by an unexplained energy surge, then silence. Moments before the Cthar disintegrated as a fighting force. He began to suspect the official narrative was incomplete or deliberately misleading. Determined to uncover the truth, Zalter sought unofficial sources. He contacted surviving veterans from his unit and discreetly attempted to access restricted data. He even managed to cross-reference with what few Cthar records remained after peace had finally been established between the species. He found inconsistencies and whispered accounts of strange lights or ghost signals near the human sector. Piecing together the human perspective from scattered logs, distress calls, and a recovered human data core he managed to access, Zalter reconstructed the situation. The humans had been vastly outnumbered, defending a civilian outpost or transport vessel, facing certain annihilation by a Cthar detachment. Their official requests for assistance had been denied or could not be met by the Xylos fleet engaged elsewhere in the battle. What Zalter discovered next shook him to his core. He found evidence of a final, desperate decision by the humans. Facing complete destruction and the prospect of their civilians being captured, tortured, or enslaved by the brutal Cathar, the human commander had activated a classified protocol, a last resort measure that existed outside the standard military doctrine known to the galactic community. This wasn't a conventional weapon. Rather, the humans had deployed what Zalter could only describe as a silent fury protocol. They had generated an empathic broadcast containing pure human terror, grief, and rage, targeted directly at the Cathar command structure. The emotional assault had overwhelmed the Cathar's sensory and mental systems, causing widespread panic and breakdown of command. The more Zalter studied the evidence, the clearer it became. The Cathar hadn't retreated from the Xylos. They had fled in absolute horror from the humans. Humans, pushed to the edge of extinction, had unleashed something primal, unpredictable, and entirely alien to the controlled, logical warfare of both Xylos and Cathar. It was an act born of desperation, sacrifice, and an existential capacity for rage that the galaxy had never suspected existed within the seemingly unremarkable species. The day of Zalter's presentation arrived. The Grand Hall of the War Memorial Institute was filled to capacity. Senior Xylos officials, academy cadets, historians, and media representatives were all present, expecting a tale of Xylos' glory and tactical brilliance. Zalter began his narrative conventionally, recounting the strategic situation and the known actions of the Xylos and Cathar forces. He built tension leading to the unexplained collapse of the Cathar. But instead of declaring Xylos' triumph, Zalter paused. He presented the anomalies, the fragmented data, the inconsistencies in the official record. And then he introduced the insignificant human contingent. What I am about to share, Zalter said, his voice steady but grave, challenges everything we believe about galactic warfare and about a species we have consistently underestimated. Using three-dimensional recreations based on his findings, Zalter detailed the humans' desperate situation, their final action, and the devastating psychological impact it had on the Cathar fleet. He emphasized that this wasn't standard warfare. It was something different, a frightening capacity hidden beneath an unimpressive exterior. We did not defeat the Cathar warships at Cygnus X-1, Zalter declared. The humans broke their will. That is why they fled. And that is why, perhaps, we should truly fear them, or at least understand the depths to which they can go. A deathly silence fell over the auditorium, followed by skepticism, murmurs, and outrage from conservatives who felt Xylos' glory had been diminished. Officials appeared uncomfortable. Cadets sat wide-eyed, their perception of humans shattered. Zalter faced severe backlash in the days that followed, accused of heresy, delusion, or disrespect to Xylos' veterans. His reputation was challenged, yet his evidence was compelling, and his standing forced people to take him seriously. Investigations were quietly reopened. As the story spread throughout the galaxy, other species began to re-evaluate their encounters with humans. Previously unexplained incidents or anomalies involving humans were viewed in a new light. Diplomatic stances subtly shifted. There was a new caution, a wariness, even fear in how other species interacted with humanity. Humans noticed this change, confused or perhaps disturbingly aware of the potential that Zalter had revealed. Zalter lived with the consequences of his revelation. Though somewhat isolated from mainstream Xylos society, he became a figure sought out by those wanting to know the real story. He found some peace in having spoken the truth, however troubling. He reflected on the nature of fear. It wasn't about inherent aggression, but the frightening potential contained within the seemingly ordinary, driven by emotions the Xylos thought they had evolved beyond. In his final days, Zalter observed a human diplomat from afar, no longer seeing a weak or primitive emotional creature, but an entity containing an undefined capacity for creation and destruction, capable of ferocity, tied to their deep emotional bonds. The fear was not about invasion, but about the unleashing of that silent fury once more. The galaxy now knew, do not push humans too far. The grand auditorium of the Xylos War Memorial Institute echoed with murmurs as Commander Zalter stepped onto the elevated platform. The aging war hero's carapace had dulled with age, but his compound eyes still gleamed with sharp intelligence. The audience, a mix of high-ranking military officials, history scholars, academy cadets, and media representatives, fell silent as he approached the podium. Many had traveled across star systems to hear the definitive account of the mysterious battle of Cygnus X, one darkness from one of the Xylos Empire's most decorated commanders. Distinguished members of the High Command, honored educators, future defenders of our empire, Zalter began, his voice amplified throughout the vast chamber. I stand before you to present the comprehensive analysis of the engagement that has become known as the Battle of Cygnus X, One Darkness, an engagement that secured our dominance in the Cygnus sector and demonstrated the tactical superiority of Xylos' military doctrine. Holographic displays activated around the auditorium, showing the strategic situation at the time of the battle. The images were crisp, clinical, and perfectly organized, typical of Xylos' military presentations. Our fleet, consisting of 4 battle groups, engaged the Cthar Dominion forces here, near the gravity well of Cygnus X. 1. Zalter continued, manipulating the holographic display with practiced precision. The Cthar forces outnumbered ours by approximately 1.6 to 1, and initially held positional advantage due to their earlier arrival in the system. For nearly 30 minutes, Zalter methodically outlined the battle's progression. He detailed the opening maneuvers, the exchange of long-range weapon fire, and the implementation of the classic Xylos pincer formation that had been temporarily effective against the Cthar's more aggressive assault pattern. The audience watched intently, many nodding in appreciation of the tactical displays. At this critical juncture, for 0.2 hours into the engagement, our strategic position had become precarious, Zalter said, highlighting a formation of Cthar vessels that had successfully circumvented the Xylos' defensive screen. The Cthar had achieved breakthrough in Sector 7 Gamma and were positioned to envelop our command vessels. By all standard tactical assessments, the Cthar held advantage. The holographic display shifted to show the next phase of the battle, the moment that had become legendary in Xylos' military academies. The superior Cthar force, on the verge of victory, suddenly and inexplicably broke formation, scattered in multiple directions, and retreated in what appeared to be a state of complete disorganization. And then, Zalter said, his tone shifting subtly, something occurred that defied conventional tactical analysis. The Cthar force, despite their advantageous position, experienced a catastrophic breakdown in command structure and combat discipline. Zalter paused, his compound eyes scanning the audience. This was the moment of decision. Continue with the comfortable official narrative or reveal what he had discovered. He had rehearsed this moment countless times in the privacy of his quarters, weighing his duty to historical accuracy against his loyalty to the Empire. The official record attributes this to superior Xylos' psychological warfare tactics and the inherent instability of Cthar command structures under pressure, he continued. This has been the accepted explanation for 17 cycles. Another pause, longer this time. However, this explanation is incomplete and does not align with the factual evidence. A ripple of surprise moved through the audience. Senior officials exchanged glances. This deviation from the expected narrative was unprecedented, especially from a commander of Zalter's standing. With the approval of the High Command, I have conducted an independent investigation into the anomalies of this engagement, Zalter said, though no such approval had been granted. It was a calculated risk. Once he presented his evidence, challenging him would require acknowledging the evidence existed. I draw your attention to a detail previously deemed inconsequential in our tactical analysis: the presence of a small human contingent in the Cygnus X-1 system. The holographic display shifted again, zooming to a distant region of the battlefield, highlighting a small cluster of ships with a design architecture distinctly different from both Xylos and Cathar vessels. These human vessels were defending a civilian research outpost on the third moon of the gas giant in the system. Their presence was noted, but considered militarily insignificant given their limited numbers and technological capabilities. Zaltar activated a new series of displays, communication logs, sensor readings, and energy signatures that had never been included in the official record. 6 minutes before the Cathar command structure collapsed, a detachment of their forces engaged this human position. The humans were outnumbered by a factor of 12 to 1. Their defensive capabilities were overwhelmed within minutes. Their distress signals to our fleet were received, but, given our tactical situation, no assistance could be provided. The audience watched in silence as Zaltar displayed the desperate communications from the human commander, translated from their language into Xylos script. The messages were emotional, disorganized by Xylos standards, but conveyed a clear understanding that their position was hopeless and their civilians would face the notorious cruelty of Cathar capture. The humans knew they could not win. They knew we could not help them. They knew what awaited their civilian population. Zaltar's voice had taken on a somber quality rarely heard in Xylos. Communication. And then, they did something that defies our understanding of warfare. He activated a classified sensor log showing energy readings from the human position. The humans initiated what appears to have been a desperate final protocol. Not a conventional weapon, but something designed specifically to target the psychological makeup of the Cathar. My analysis suggests they generated a directed empathic broadcast, a weaponized emotional transmission containing the full spectrum of human fear, grief, and rage. Murmurs of disbelief spread through the audience. Such a concept was alien to Xylos' understanding of warfare. I have recovered and translated fragments of Cathar communication during the incident. Zaltar continued. Their command vessels reported experiencing what they described as the screaming void, the all-consuming darkness, and the endless hunger. Their communications degenerated into what can only be described as expressions of primal terror before cutting off entirely. Zaltar displayed the recovered Cathar transmissions. Even translated into the clinical precision of Xylos language, they contained an unmistakable quality of horror that was disturbing to hear. Within 3 minutes of this human action, the entire Cathar fleet broke formation and retreated. This was not a tactical withdrawal. It was a rout driven by psychological collapse. The implications of what Zaltar was suggesting began to dawn on the audience. The revered commander was attributing their famous victory not to Xylos' tactical superiority, but to an unexpected and terrifying capacity of a species they had long considered primitive and inconsequential. The Cathar did not retreat from our forces, Zaltar stated clearly. They fled in absolute terror from what the humans had unleashed. A capacity for emotional warfare that neither we nor the Cathar had ever encountered or conceptualized as possible. He deactivated the holographic displays, leaving only his illuminated figure on the platform. I have spent years analyzing this incident, cross-referencing with other encounters involving humans throughout our history. I have found a pattern of similar anomalies. Incidents where adversaries facing humans in desperate circumstances experienced unexplained psychological effects. These incidents have been dismissed, rationalized, or classified, but they form a consistent pattern. Zaltar's voice grew more solemn. The humans sacrificed themselves at Cygnus X-1. Every human vessel was destroyed, but in their final moments, they demonstrated a capacity that should fundamentally change how we understand them as a species. The audience remained stunned as Zaltar delivered his conclusion. We have consistently evaluated humans based on their technology, their physical capabilities, and their disorganized social structures. We have dismissed them as primitive because they have not evolved beyond their emotions. But what we witnessed at Cygnus X-1 suggests that these emotions, the very qualities we consider their weakness, can become a weapon more terrifying than any technology when they are pushed to their absolute limit. Zaltar straightened to his full height, his aged carapace gleaming under the auditorium lights. "We did not win the battle of Cygnus X, one darkness. The humans defeated the Cthar, not for their own survival, which was already lost, but to save us, to prevent the Cthar from using their position to destroy our fleet after they had finished with the human outpost." The silence in the auditorium was absolute. Then, as the implications settled, it erupted into chaos. Senior officials demanded the presentation be halted. Military theorists argued loudly with one another. Cadets sat in stunned silence, their understanding of galactic power structures crumbling before their eyes. Admiral Vexcor, the most senior military official present, rose from his seat and approached the platform. The audience quieted as he reached Zalter. "Commander Zalter," the admiral said, his voice tight with controlled anger, "you will suspend this presentation immediately. These unfounded speculations undermine the glory of the Empire and insult the memory of those who fought at Cygnus X-1. Zalter inclined his head respectfully, but stood his ground. "Admiral, I have presented only verified data. I submit all my evidence to High Command scrutiny." "Evidence that you obtained without authorization," the admiral countered. "You will be escorted to secured quarters while this situation is evaluated." Two security officers approached the platform. As they reached Zalter, he activated one final holographic display, a personal recording from his own memory of the battle's aftermath. It showed the debris field where the human vessels had made their last stand, and a visual sensor log capturing the final transmission from the human commander before their empathic weapon was deployed. The human's face, so alien with its soft features and expressive eyes, filled the display. The emotion in those eyes was incomprehensible to most Xylos, but unmistakable in its intensity. "This is Commander Sarah Chun of Earth Alliance Outpost Horizon," the human said, her voice steady despite the chaos visible behind her. "Our position is overrun. Civilian evacuation has failed. The Cthar have disabled our conventional weapons. May those who find this record understand, we do what we must, not in hatred but in love. Silent Fury Protocol initiated. For those we leave behind, and those we will never know. Horizon out." The recording ended. The security officers hesitated, looking to Admiral Vexcor for instruction. "Escort Commander Zalter to his quarters," the admiral finally ordered, his voice subdued. "This matter requires further investigation." As Zalter was led from the auditorium, the damage was already done. Recordings of his presentation had been transmitted across the Xylos Information Network by the media representatives present. Within hours, it would spread to other species through diplomatic channels and intelligence networks. In the days that followed, Zalter faced official censure from the Xylos High Command. He was stripped of his teaching position at the Academy and placed under house arrest, pending a full investigation into his reckless dissemination of unverified intelligence. But the High Command faced a difficult problem. Zalter's evidence was meticulous and compelling. Attempts to discredit it only raised more questions. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other species began to re-evaluate their understanding of humans. The MRRKR Collective, known for their extensive intelligence gathering, cross-referenced Zalter's findings with their own records and found corroborating evidence of similar incidents. The Thessalian Confederation, which had established trade relations with humans, quietly increased their diplomatic security protocols. On dozens of worlds, scholars and military analysts reviewed historical encounters with humans, finding patterns that had previously been dismissed as coincidence or exaggeration. The most disturbing accounts came from species who had, at some point, pushed human populations to desperate circumstances. All reported inexplicable psychological effects among their forces, episodes previously attributed to equipment malfunction, hallucinogenic space phenomena, or mass hysteria. 3 cycles after his presentation, Zalter was formally exonerated by a special committee of the High Command. The official statement acknowledged certain factual inconsistencies in the historical record of the Cygnus X-1 engagement, but maintained that Commander Zalter's interpretation of these facts represents one possible explanation among many. It was a political compromise that satisfied no one but allowed the empire to save face. Zalter, now effectively retired, resided in a modest dwelling on the outskirts of the capital. Though no longer welcome in official military circles, he found himself sought out by a steady stream of visitors. Young officers seeking the truth, scholars researching galactic history, and representatives from other species eager to understand the implications of his discoveries. On a quiet evening, as the binary stars of the Xylos system set below the horizon, Zalter received an unexpected visitor. A diplomatic transport bearing Earth Alliance markings landed near his dwelling. A single human emerged, tall by their standards, with the distinctive dark skin coloration of one of their regional variations. "Commander Zalter," the human said in carefully practiced Xylos speech as Zalter greeted them at the entrance to his dwelling. "I am Ambassador Elijah Okonkwo of the Earth Alliance. I hope I am not intruding." Zalter invited the human inside, observing him with new awareness. Not a weak, primitive creature as he had once thought, but a being containing hidden depths and frightening potential. "Your presentation about the Battle of Cygnus X one has created quite a stir throughout the galaxy," the ambassador said once they were seated. "Particularly among my people. I spoke only the truth as I discovered it," Zalter replied. "Was your government aware of this capability?" The ambassador's expression showed complexity that Xylos' facial structures were incapable of. The Silent Fury protocol was classified at the highest levels. It was developed as a last resort in the early days of our expansion, when we first encountered the Cthar and realized how outmatched we were technologically. It has only been deployed twice in our history, at Cygnus X-1 and at a colony called New Horizon 3 decades earlier. After Cygnus, it was decommissioned. Because it was too dangerous? Zalter asked. Because it required the willing, psychological sacrifice of the users, the ambassador explained. The protocol didn't just broadcast emotions. It consumed the minds of those who initiated it. Commander Sarah Chun and her crew didn't just die physically. Their very consciousness was used as the transmission medium. The psychological toll on the survivors of New Horizon made it clear this was not a weapon we could morally justify, regardless of circumstances. Zalter absorbed this new information, finding it simultaneously disturbing and oddly honorable. The willingness to sacrifice not just one's body, but one's mind spoke to a concept of duty that resonated with Xylos' values, albeit expressed in an alien form. "Why are you telling me this, Ambassador?" Zalter finally asked. "Because you deserve to know the full truth," the human replied. "And because your courage in revealing what happened has created a new reality that we must all navigate together. A reality where other species fear humans," Zalter observed. "A reality where other species understand humans better," the ambassador corrected gently. "Fear based on misunderstanding leads to conflict. Fear based on understanding can lead to respect and caution. What you revealed was not just our capacity for terrible acts in desperate circumstances, but why we are capable of them." The ambassador leaned forward, his eyes, so expressively alien, fixed on Zalter. "You understood what many of your kind have not, that our emotions are not a weakness but the core of who we are. We fight differently because we form bonds differently. The same capacity that allows us to sacrifice ourselves for others can become something terrible when those others are threatened." Zalter considered this. The Cthar could not understand this. Perhaps even now, my people cannot truly comprehend it. Few species can, the ambassador agreed. Most evolved with different priorities. The Xylos developed logic and collective coordination to survive your harsh world. The Cthar evolved perfect predatory efficiency. Humans evolved through connection and adaptation. Different evolutionary paths, different fundamental drives. They spoke well into the night, the aging alien warrior and the human diplomat, finding unexpected common ground in their shared understanding of a terrible truth. As the ambassador prepared to leave, he extended a data crystal to Zalter. "This contains the complete record of the Silent Fury protocol, its development, the psychological theory behind it, and the personal logs of the survivors from New Horizon is being provided simultaneously to all major galactic powers. No more secrets about this. Zalter accepted the crystal. What do you hope to achieve with this transparency, Ambassador? The human smiled, an expression Zalter had learned indicated not just pleasure, but sometimes sadness or irony as well. Understanding. We want the galaxy to know what we are capable of at our worst, so that we can all work to ensure those circumstances never arise again. And perhaps to recognize that the emotional connections that make us dangerous when threatened are the same connections that make us valuable as allies and friends. After the ambassador departed, Zalter stood outside his dwelling, gazing up at the star-filled sky. Somewhere out there, humans were expanding through the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as explorers and traders. Not obviously dangerous like the predatory Kthar, or methodically expansionist like the Xylos, but carrying within them both great capacity for connection and terrible potential for devastation when those connections were threatened. The galaxy had learned to fear humans, not for their strength or technology, but for the primal force that lay beneath their seemingly fragile exterior, a force born of the very emotions that the Xylos had dismissed as weakness. And in that fear, perhaps, lay the seeds of a new and wiser understanding. As he had told the gathered audience at the War Memorial Institute, the humans broke their will. That is why they fled. And that is why, perhaps, we should truly fear them, or at least understand the depths to which they can go. The galaxy now knew, do not push humans too far.